Craving the coffee flavor you love, but without the caffeine? Kachava's got you covered with their newest coffee flavor. This all-in-one nutrition shake delivers bold, authentic flavor crafted from premium decaffeinated Brazilian beans. Quality nutrition shouldn't be complicated. Just 2 scoops of Kachava's all-in-one nutrition shake, and you've got 25 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, greens, and so much more. Whether you're craving that coffee taste to kickstart your morning ritual, or as a nutrient-packed reward to round out your afternoon, Kachava keeps you fueled and satisfied wherever your day takes you. Plus, it actually tastes delicious. No fillers, no nonsense. Just the good stuff your body craves. And for the times you feel like switching it up, you've got 7 flavors to choose from, all with the highest quality ingredients. Treat yourself to the flavor and nutrition your body craves. Go to Kachava.com and use code NEWS. New customers get 15% off their first order. That's KACHAVA.com, code NEWS.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word SHOW to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word SHOW, SHOW, to 33777. Text SHOW to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
My buddy Alan is a pilot for Delta. He tuned in the Spirit Airlines segment, and I told him, I said, I'm short of net jets. I won't leave Delta for something like Spirit, but I do resent Delta's prices being what they are. They keep going up, and they're making a big deal out of being a pricey airline. And he replied that he's not cheap. That is true. That is true. Short of flying private, which is a long way off, if ever. I am stuck on Delta. I'm hoping one of my listeners one day is like has no family and is very wealthy and just leaves their whole estate to me. That would be the easiest way to start flying private. I love you, whoever you are, and you're thinking about it. This headline at CNBC right now: Trump administration in advanced talks for Spirit Airlines rescue package. Y'all, just let the free market work. We in this country have kind of given up on a free market, and a free market works better than any other market. It is way more efficient. You and me in arm's length transactions doing what's best for our family, and the creative destruction of the marketplace is something we haven't let happen. And every time we keep pushing off allowing David to slay Goliath, eventually Goliath's fall is harder and harder and creates way more tremors. So one of the things with free market, and by the way, Kevin Walsh, I'm excited about this guy as the chairman of the Federal Reserve because he's a Milton Friedman acolyte. Guy was a student of Milton Friedman's. He understands the way the free market works. And in a free market, you and me working at arm's length transactions for ourselves to do what's in our best interest, where the government's job is to just keep the playing field level and fair, we can negotiate with each other. And at some point, you can have a great idea that upends my idea. Right now, the way our market works is I can run to President Trump and say, this guy's a no good guy. Help me out, and the government will turn and destroy my business competitor for me. That's not a free market. That is a technocratic market that is headed towards a socialist market that is headed towards a market with great inefficiencies that ultimately bring about destruction. It brings about destruction because it creates moral hazards that continue to perpetuate each other, amplify each other, and become so magnified that at some point you can't stop the wave from crashing. Let the free market work. We'd all be better off, including with Spirit Airlines. Now, I want to move on. One of the things I've noticed in the arguments, whether it's in Virginia redistricting or the California high-speed rail system and the like, there is a great divide in this country, and it is between the people who believe the government is a jobs program and for people who believe the government is not a jobs program. The entire ecosystem of non-governmental organizations, NGOs, appears increasingly to have been a graft and greed society conjured by Democrats to keep people employed. Did you know Dr. Oz, that Dr. Oz, it's wild to believe he's in charge of the Center for Medicaid and Medicare. They sent, they stopped paying hundreds of hospice facilities in California. There was that big CBS News investigation where hundreds and hundreds of hospice organizations were getting paid millions and millions of American dollars, and one of them was like registered to a food truck or some such, or empty offices. They were shell companies. They were vehicles for fraud. Dr. Oz said they stopped payment to over 100 of these hospice facilities. Not a single one has reached out to find out where their check is. If you were a legitimate business expecting money and you didn't get it, you would reach out. None of these companies did because they're not legitimate. It's the same thing with the fraud in Minnesota. People are using government payments as a jobs fund. This is Doug Burgum. I want you to listen to this.
A new review from the Interior Department is shedding light on how taxpayer dollars are being wasted in Washington. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum says some NGOs, or non-governmental organizations, are getting their federal funding from you, the taxpayer, while also pushing political agendas, including illegal immigration.
We found organizations that were receiving grants from Interior where 80 to 100% of the revenue of that NGO was a grant from the federal government. And yet those organizations, we were the sole source of their revenue, but they would have a CEO making $650,000 and $400,000 lobbyists.
Secretary Burgum calling for tougher oversight of these grants, and some of these programs right now are on the chopping block as the administration looks to crack down on wasteful spending.
Now, I want to read for you Donald Trump's statement on Tim Cook. Tim Cook is retiring as the CEO of Apple. And the president took to Truth Social. And let me just read you this whole post. It's a kind of lengthy post here, where the president even pokes fun at himself for one time calling Tim Cook Tim Apple. I've always been a fan of Tim Cook and likewise Steve Jobs, but if Steve was not taken from the planet Earth so young and ran the company instead of Tim, the company would not have done well, the company would have done well, but nowhere near as well as it has under Tim. For me, it began with a phone call from Tim at the beginning of my first term. He had a fairly large problem that only I, as president, could fix. Most people would have paid millions of dollars to a consultant who I probably would not have known, but who would say that he knew me well. The fees would be paid, but the job would not have gotten done. When I got the call, I said, wow, it's Tim Apple, in parentheses, Cook, calling. How big is that? I was very impressed with myself to have the head of Apple calling to kiss my butt, except he didn't say butt. Anyway, he explained his problem, a tough one it was. I felt he was right and got it taken care of quickly and effectively. That was the beginning of a long and very nice relationship. During my 5 years as president, Tim would call me, but never too much, and I would help him where I could. Years later, after 3 or 4 big helps, I started to say to people, anyone who would listen, that this guy is an amazing manager and leader. He makes these calls to me. I help him out, but not always, because he will on occasion be too aggressive in his ask. And he gets the job done quickly, without a dime being given to those very expensive millions of dollars consultants around town who sometimes get it done and sometimes don't. Anyway, Tim Cook had an amazing career, almost incomparable, and will go on and continue to do great work for Apple and whatever else he chooses to work on. Quite simply, Tim Cook is an incredible guy. President Donald J. Trump. The consultants are the lobbyists. And if you go back to Doug Burgum's clip, he said there were NGOs in Washington, D.C. getting 100% of their money from the federal government, paying $600,000 to the CEO and $400,000 to the lobbyists. And what were the lobbyists doing? The lobbyists were lobbying to keep getting money to the NGO that actually wasn't putting points on the board, but was just getting people paid. Look at the high-speed rail system in California. The high-speed rail system has not laid a single meter, single foot, single inch of track, and yet it has employed lots and lots of people and outside consultants and lobbyists. It's a jobs program. Look at the failure of schools in the nation, and what do the Democrats focus on? They focus on the jobs. How many people are getting paid? And increasingly, a lot of government-run schools now have superintendents, assistant superintendents, deputy junior superintendents in charge of photocopiers, deputy junior assistants in charge of photocopier repair, junior assistant deputy superintendents of alphabetical order of the students, you name it. The bureaucracies within schools just explode. It's a jobs program. The federal government is viewed as a jobs program. The government at the state and the federal level is supposed to be a government. What is a government supposed to do? A government is supposed to keep you safe and make it possible for you to lawfully, legally, and fairly transact business. That's what the government is supposed to do. Instead, what our government does now is it takes your taxpayer dollars and creates salaries for people in nonprofits that oftentimes don't put real points on the board for their nonprofit. And then what do those nonprofits oftentimes do? They shut out more effective nonprofits. Look at Catholic Charities. Catholic Charities is run by the Catholic Church. Catholic Charities runs schools, adoption agencies, foster care placement, medical facilities. The Catholic Church does a tremendous charitable effort in the United States. In fact, the Catholic charitable effort in this country is derived from the Catholic charitable effort going back to the founding of Christendom, where it was, the original hospitals were created by Christians in the Roman Empire. The Romans just left people for dead. The Christians valued life so much, they're like, you know what, we might be able to heal this person. The original concept of the hospital was derived from Christian thought. It was Christian missionaries and monks who put on the first hospitals, and the Catholic Church around the world has Catholic hospitals doing great things. And what do the NGOs of the nation do? Catholic Charities doesn't get a lot of government money, and the NGOs out there want to keep the Catholic Church from getting any money whatsoever. There's actually a case coming before the United States Supreme Court this next year where Catholic charities in Colorado are prohibited from participating in certain government programs for education, and Catholic church schools are prohibited from doing so unless they agree to secular, progressive, biblical sexual orthodoxy or anti-biblical sexual orthodoxy. If you don't want to have gay employees, and you don't want to advance gay rights, you can't participate in government money. What progressives have done in this country over time, by the way, is they have created a secular church, and secular values must reign supreme. The way the Constitution should work and the way it seems like the federal court system is moving back towards is that the government can't pick and choose between religions. If you've got religious values that say marriage is between a man and a woman, you can't be denied participation in government because of that belief. Right now, the way the law specifically works is that you can be denied access to government participation in programs unless you adhere to secular orthodoxy, because secularism isn't treated as a religion, and it should be. Secularism is a form of religion. It's just a religion absent a God. These NGOs don't want Catholic charities competing for public dollars, because otherwise, how are they going to pay their board? How are they going to pay their employees? How are they going to pay their CEO? It has become a great scam, and it's one that subsidizes the Democratic Party, because what these NGOs do is they then they pay their CEO and they pay their lobbyists, who then write checks to the Democratic Party. Around the entire country, we're seeing this. The public school systems in states around the country operate as a money laundering operation for Democratic politicians and a jobs programs for Democratic operatives. They're not teaching kids. You get better results in Mississippi, where they spend less than half of what other states spend per capita on schools. You get far better literacy and math rates now in Mississippi than California does. California spends 10 times more on schools adjusted for per capita basis. And the results are worse. But in California, they hire more people in the school system. There is a great debate about spending more in public schools these days. What are you going to do with the money? I mean, there are states that are spending $30,000 and $40,000 per kid, and they're getting worse results than Mississippi that spends $10,000 per kid. What they don't want you to say, what they don't want you to know, what they don't want you to acknowledge is that what this is actually about is a jobs program. And that is the great divide now among people in this country. Do you view the government as a jobs program, or do you view the government as government? And Democrats not only view it as a jobs program, they view it as a one-size-fits-all government operation where states no longer matter, individual states don't matter, their views don't matter. It's all about advancing an agenda based on power. And part of that is to keep people employed on the government dime so they turn around and give their money to the Democratic Party. And they resent like hell the Republican Party and Donald Trump stamping out their jobs program that funds the Democratic Party. Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Jim, you're going to be up next. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Great.
If Kevin Warsh is approved as head of the Federal Reserve Bank, will stock prices eventually come back down to earth?
I don't know that stock prices are going to come down because of his nomination. I do think that he is probably going to begin divesting a lot of the Federal Reserve's holdings, which is a good thing. He actually blames the Federal Reserve in part for the inflation crisis we've had in the country, not just the federal spending, but the Federal Reserve buying up books and just piling money into the Federal Reserve in ways they shouldn't have done. He thinks the Federal Reserve has exceeded its mandate. He wants to restrain it. And I actually kind of agree with him. He's a robust believer in the free market. You know, just on Wash, let me just say this. So one of my frustrations these days, Kevin Wash, in his nomination for Federal Reserve Chair, was asked if he thought the 2020 election was stolen, and he hemmed and hawed on it instead of saying no. A lot of people are saying this is discrediting. Here's the problem. He is highly qualified for the job. He is a student of Milton Friedman and is probably the best pick for the job. He could not get his nomination or the job if he were to say the election wasn't stolen, because it is dogma for Donald Trump whether you believe the election was stolen or not. And I don't believe the election was stolen. And people want to pounce on Wash for saying that, when the fact of the matter is you'd rather him than anyone who is insistently adamant that the election was stolen. You don't want a true believer. You want someone who's highly competent, and he is. At some point, you got to exercise a little grace here and recognize that you sometimes got to do the dog and pony show to placate Donald Trump so you can then go in and be great at your job. That's just the reality of the age. You don't have to like it, but that's the reality. I would sure rather Kevin Wash than Kevin Hassett or somebody else in the position who's been such a sycophant to the president these days, even at times where they shouldn't be. Now, I want to tell you about Rinnai. They are doing a $500 rebate on their tankless water heaters like I have at my house. Y'all know how much I love mine. Y'all know how much I love Rinnai. You can get one and get the $500 rebate. Now, this is for homeowners only. Let me tell you what you got to do, what the details are. $500 rebate, homeowners only for Rinnai tankless water heater. You got to purchase and install by June 30th. It's simple. You go to talkingtankless.com. You click on the rebate button. That'll take you to the Rinnai rebate page, and you put in your basic information. They're asking you for your name, address, stuff like that to be able to get you your rebate. And then when you get in, you'll see the Eric Erickson rebate, and it's going to ask you for a passcode. The passcode is real easy to remember. Eric, E-R-I-C-K. You got to have it installed by June 30th to get the $500 rebate. And by the way, if you go to talkingtankless.com, you can also locate a trained plumber to schedule the installation. Do your family a favor and go to talkingtankless.com. Get the $500 rebate, buy and install by June 30th. Take advantage of it, and you can have an endless supply of hot water today. And you'll be glad that you did, because we sure are in our house. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. I got to tell you, the meme war over the SPLC indictment is actually really, really, really hilarious. The amount of hilariousness. It turns out the SPLC was funding the very hate groups that they were covering. This is very much like the anti-racists. So we have a group of people in the United States who call themselves anti-racists. And the anti-racists fight against racism. Some of the most racist people you will ever meet are the anti-racists who have to see the world in racial terms in order to have a job. But it is a statement of fact that racism in this nation is far better than it was 50 years ago, far better than it was 100 years ago. We have fewer racists in this country than we had in the past. And we have fewer racists in charge of policies in this country than we've had in the past. But to the anti-racists, they would be out of jobs if racism went away. So they must find racism. They must find it. And if they can't find it, the SPLC, it looks like, manufactured it to be able to continue to fundraise for it. The anti-racists would lose their money if racism went away tomorrow. It's why the left perpetuates the idea that so many things that aren't racist are racist, because if you can redefine racism, you keep racism alive, and they can redefine themselves and keep fighting racism. We're always going to have racism because racism is a sin. And until the second coming, we'll always have sin, and that sin will include racism. We see a bunch of people who claim to be Christians these days who are deeply racist individuals, and we're not going to see them in heaven, even though they claim to be Christians. You know it, and I know it. Not everyone who says they're a Christian actually is. I can call myself the King of England, and it doesn't make it so. You can call yourself a Christian, it doesn't make it so. And we can say that's between you and God, but also we can say there are going to be a lot of people who call themselves Christians who aren't going to be in heaven, and many of them are deeply racist and anti-Semites. We have a rise of racism in this country. We do. To some degree, I do wonder now how many of them were funded by the SPLC. But the SPLC's money was winding down. Its donations were winding down because its cause was winding down. And so the SPLC, according to this indictment, began to fund the very groups and individuals that it was covering as racial extremists so that the SPLC could seek donors in the fight against the people the SPLC was paying. And the media isn't doing justice to or honesty to the coverage. But this is a pattern and practice within the United States of America of the anti-racists being the most racist people. If you ever listen to Hannah Nicole Jones or whatever, Nicole Hannah Jones, whatever her name is, the 1619 Project, or Jamel Hill, who used to be at ESPN, these are some of the most deeply racist people on the planet. And they see everything in terms of race. Everything is about race and sex to them. They are a professional class of victims. And if they didn't amplify it and manufacture it and redefine things as being racist and the like, they'd be out of jobs. Jamel Hill, I guess, claims to be some sort of sports commentator. She's not. She's just into racial grievance. So many of these people are. And it's just nice to see their days being numbered in this country. And it is nice to see the federal government under the Trump administration wising up to the massive array of subsidies going on with these people in this country as the federal government cuts the budget for so many of these organizations. And now to expose the SPLC for its funding. Now, I want to go back to my statement on Kevin Walsh, because this is a frustration for me. There are a lot of people who do not believe the election was stolen, and a lot of people who do believe the election was stolen in 2020. Allegedly, indictments are coming. I'll believe it when I see it. They found stuff on James Comey and Letitia James to more quickly indict them than anyone who supposedly stole the election in 2020. And just so you know, I don't think the election was stolen in 2020. If you think it was stolen fair and square, Democrats went to court and got favorable rulings from judges taking advantage of the COVID situation. But as far as like the nonsensical thefts, the claims of stolen ballots in Fulton County, Georgia, and missing ballots and things like that, people have manufactured and twisted the truth to maintain a grievance, and in a large part, it's a grift. And many people out there believe the election was stolen for a lot of reasons that when you present them the facts, they don't really care about the facts. They then jump to something else because they want to believe that they were a victim. What the 2020 stolen election stuff was about is professional victimization. You want to be a victim. You want to believe you were played a poor hand. You want to believe it was stolen from you. And so I can't convince you otherwise. So I've given up on the 2020 stuff. However, if you want a job for Donald Trump, you got to say the election was stolen, or at least not say it wasn't stolen. Would you rather Kevin Walsh to be the chairman of the Federal Reserve, or a true sycophant to the president who's going to do whatever he can to give the president his way? Which would you rather? A free market Milton Friedman acolyte like Kevin Walsh, or a Kevin Hassett, or a Howard Lutnick? How about Lutnick? Lutnick is a great example. Would you rather Howard Lutnick, who will adamantly insist that the election in 2020 was stolen and he will do whatever the president wants in that position? What do you want? I would rather a guy like Kevin Walsh. But for Kevin Walsh to get in that position, he cannot say that the 2020 election was not stolen. He can't do it. You can be mad about that. But the fact is, for you to say he's discredited himself, no, he's playing the game that must be played. Now, forgive me for being cynical in this day and age, but all of you people are as cynical as I am, even if you don't want to admit it. The fact of the matter is, you got to do a dog and pony show these days in politics on the left and the right to get elected. On the Democratic Party side, if you say anything nice about Israel these days, if you take AI PAC money, you're not going to get elected. They're going to crucify you. They're going to do everything they can to shut you down. I would rather someone who is Jewish, who sides with Israel, play the game and get elected and then betray the left than I would a true believer. That's just the reality. You got to say what you need to say to get yourself elected these days. And I hate it. I hate that we're here, but that's the nature of where we are. And you can say, Erickson, this is bad. You shouldn't do this. Well, you know what? Yeah, I think it is bad, but this is the state of play we're in right now in this country. If Kevin Walsh needs to say that he thinks Donald Trump is the greatest president ever, the election was stolen in 2020, and do whatever he needs to do, I think he's going to be a great pick for the Federal Reserve. And I will show him some grace and give him a pass on playing the game the way it must be paid to get in a position where once he's there, he has the independence to do the right thing. And that is ultimately what it is for me, is being able to put good people in a position to do the right thing. You know, here's one of my great frustrations in American politics right now. Every single one of you, it doesn't matter where you are, left, right, center, Democrat, Republican, progressive, conservative, moderate, independent, it doesn't matter. Every single one of you laments that we can't get good people elected, and we need good people. We need good people. Except when you guys find the good people, they tend to get eviscerated. They get eviscerated, and they get vilified in attacks, and you believe the attacks. And you decide, you know what, that guy's not a good guy. I heard someone say this terrible thing about this guy. This guy must not be a good guy. Well, and this is why the good people, by the way, don't want to run anymore. The good people don't want to run for office because it's a nasty process, and they run and they get smeared and attacked. And a lot of people would rather believe the smear and the attack. A lot of people want to believe the smear. In large part, people want to believe the smear because you don't want to believe a good person's running for office. You want to believe they're all terrible people. You want the good person to run, but when the good person runs, you want to believe they're a bad person. That's why good people keep getting out of politics. He did an interview this morning with a lady, and she was asking me about my time as a political consultant. So one of the great things about it was seeing good people, meeting good people of good character who want to run for office, trying to help get elected. It's harder and harder these days. I ran a race one time in my county for Bibb County Commission chairman. My candidate's name was Bob Fountain. He passed away a few years ago. Great man. Ran as a Democrat. My law firm did a lot of business for the county, and my law firm was happy for me to run his campaign because he was running against a guy who will go nameless, who actually moved out west and ran for mayor of a major city out there a while back, which was kind of wild to see. Well, that guy, my candidate Bob's opponent, there was a sex tape. It's kind of bizarre. I got a phone call at my office from a block number. It was a female voice. And she said she had damning goods. She didn't say damaging, damning goods about the opponent. And she wanted to give it to me. I said, okay, where do you want to meet? And she said she wanted to meet at down from my office. There's a little park. I'm in the same building. There's a little park out front on the median. She's going to meet me there. And I went down there and I waited and waited and waited. She never came. She never came. Never she came. Went back to my office and she called and she said, I saw you. I was just scared. So where do you want to meet? She said, I want you to go to the Washington Street Park. And if you go to the Washington Street Park, under the third park bench, you'll find a plastic bag, and the evidence will be in the plastic bag. So I went to the Washington Street Park, and there were several benches along. There's a little spring that comes out of the ground, and they've got it bricked up like a little creek through there. Still there. Went to the third bench, and underneath it was a plastic bag, and in the plastic bag was a videotape. Got back to my office. Went into the room where the video player was. For those of you who don't know, you used to watch videos, wasn't on DVD. Called a couple of buddies of mine in. Let's see what's on this tape. I don't know what's on this tape. Let's see what's on this tape. And we turn on the tape, and there is this man's office at the local Chamber of Commerce. Now, I didn't know it was the local Chamber of Commerce, but one of the lawyers in the room was the lawyer for the Chamber of Commerce, and he recognized the carpet and the furniture and the desk. He's like, oh, this is his office. I've been in this office. And about that time, here he comes with a woman. They don't have any clothes on. They're making one of those tapes. Yes, they are, and they make one of those tapes. I'm not going to describe the tape other than it's one of those tapes. And I called my client, Bob. I said, Bob, we got him. He was in his Chamber of Commerce office with someone who was not his wife, heavyset woman, no less, that he was on the tape. And we figured out it must have been his wife who found the tape and was the one who was dropping it off, trying to destroy his career. They had been divorced for a while. And my candidate said, nope. Said, hey, this was a couple of years ago. It's not current. They've been divorced. I'm not going to destroy that young man's future by releasing that tape. My client lost the election. Would have won it. It was a close election. Would have won it had he leaked the sex tape. Didn't want to. He was a man of great character. Ironically, as things happen, he lost the Democratic primary, and the Republican candidate wound up hiring me to run his general election, and, he leaked the snot out of that tape. He did. The media refused to bite on it, interestingly enough. The media refused to bite on it. Nonetheless, he still, my candidate won the general election because nobody really trusted that guy. But, sometimes you got to do things you don't want to do to win the election. My candidate wanted to be able to sleep well at night and not destroy another guy's career. And he wound up losing the election. I respected the heck out of him for doing that. There are good people like that who run for office, and sometimes they do win. And we say we want those people to run for office, and then we get mad when they have to do the things to win. We get disappointed in them. Do you want them to win or not? Do you want the good person in office or not? Sometimes the good person has to get their hands dirty to win in politics. Politics is dirty business. Kevin Walsh's got to say him and Hall on the issue of a stolen election in 2020, but I'd sure prefer him than some of the other people out there who would be sycophants for the president when they got in office and wouldn't necessarily do the right thing that they needed to do if it risked the ire of the president of the United States. This is the age we live in. I don't like it. You don't like it, but we live in it. We might as well recognize it. And sometimes we got to show a little grace to the good person who's trying to navigate their way through the mess. Short of sin, there are things in politics you do. It's a dirty business. And you just got to say, you know what? I don't like that this guy is doing this, but I know I got to get this guy to win because he'd be so much better than everyone else. And you see a guy like Kevin Walsh, you know he'd be better than any other person for the job. You're like, I can't support him now because he said that one thing. Or you recognize that, yeah, I'm glad he said that one thing so he can get through the nomination process and be a great Federal Reserve chair. Hello, my friends. It is Eric Erickson here. Glad to have you with me. It is too late for you to call in the show today, and that is okay. So I got to admit, Kobe and I were talking in the commercial break. It has been a slow couple of news days, and I said, I hate to say it, do we need the president to go back to bombing Iran just so we have more stuff to talk about? Whatever happened to the Nancy Guthrie case? It just that kind of faded away. Did you know, by the way, that the sheriff in the county out in Arizona did not at first allow the FBI to participate in the investigation? And there are a growing number of people who are concerned that refusal to let the FBI get involved set back the case. The FBI has finally started reviewing evidence out there. It's wild. This poor lady disappeared. Nobody knows where she is, and people have moved on to the next thing. And with a slow news period, maybe perhaps there can be some resurfacing of this story and find her. I hate it for Savannah Guthrie and that whole family there. What a test of faith to put a family through something like that. Just an awful, awful, awful situation. And that poor lady is still missing. And yet, people have moved on to all the newer headlines out there. It's one of the things I've learned as well in this job over years is how fickle people get and they get ready to move on. And I got to say that I recognize with myself, I think I got enough self-awareness that when I get bored with a story, I'm like, y'all are probably, if I'm bored with a story, y'all are probably bored with a story. But I don't know. It seems like there are some of those that we need to focus more on, but the government needs to focus on the Nancy Guthrie situation. Just what a terrible, terrible situation that everybody seems to have forgotten about. I don't want you to forget about Vision Computers. If you're buying a computer, building a computer, they can build you the computer and you get the world-class tech support with it. Not only that, though, if you just need their tech support, you can do it for yourself, for your kid going off to college. You get a computer with Vision. They'll take care of your kid's computer needs while they're at school. For a senior citizen, they can help them navigate. They can even get on the phone if you think you're being scammed if you have their tech support. You can get Vision on the phone with you when one of those scammers calls, and they'll navigate you through whether it's legitimate or not. They can help you if you're a business, learn how to use AI at your business to make your business more efficient. And the cool thing with Vision is that they have real people. You're not going to have to use the AI chatbots for your tech support. So all of your employees can get Vision Computer, and then they all get the number to call in 15 seconds or less. They get an actual human being on the phone who can even remote in and fix a computer issue. VisionComputers.com or 404-COMPUTE. Let Vision Computers keep you productive with your company while they're productive with your computers. 404-COMPUTE. Tell them Eric sent you. 404-COMPUTE or VisionComputers.com.
Now at McDonald's, a McDouble is $2.50, so you can get your gym gains on, or just get lunch for only $2.50. Get more value on the under $3 menu.
Limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher for delivery.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.